We'll get there. Okay, so how we'll do today? So if we'll start in a second here, but if you have any questions, post it in the channel above the stage, the community call side chat. If you want to come on stage, we'll try to pull up a few of you. We're not going to do a full-on everyone on stage because that's like with this amount of people would be a bit too much, and we want to keep the messaging consistent. Um, do we get Zeus? Yeah, you should join. Uh, okay, so we're recording this call and we'll be also on Twitch. That's great. Okay, let's start. Welcome everyone to this AMA of Olympus. Yeah, we'll try to do these calls every week, but I think today it was warranted to have this chat with you all, since we saw the again a liquidation cascade yesterday, some price negative price action, right, which caused also a lot of fun basically on Twitter, and a lot of people um, to be worried, and rightfully so. I think it's never nice to see a project falling in price like we did. Maybe for the people that don't really know what happened, so someone sold, I think, around 11 million worth of OM yesterday, causing like a big drop in price, and also some liquidations. Again, as always, we never really advertise that you do leveraging or 9-9ing, as it's called, but there's always risk attached, and especially in this case, that was true. Now we want to focus not on the negative, of course. Today we want to focus on what does the future hold, and I think there we want to give you a message today of like what are we working on, what is actually exciting for Olympus in the future. As also said an announcement that we had. What are the assets that Olympus holds? What is risk-free value? What are the plans if we were to, for example, decrease in price, or how are we going to generate more revenue? These types of questions we'll try to answer today as well. And if you have, again, questions for yourself, please ask them in the community call side chat on top of it. Okay, let's get started. Okay, a lot of people asking for Zeus. He will come. He will come. He has a lot of meetings today as well. When Oli zaps, that's a very good question. So Oli zaps are reworked one. That's not only on our side that we have to fix that. It's also on the zap side, basically. Where our community calls getting uploaded. We're streaming live on Twitch. I think I shared the Twitch above. If someone
I just announced it as well. Also for all the stuff.
can again post that, and then we can maybe pin it. That would be very, very nice. Okay, a lot of people wanting to come on stage. We'll do that in a second. And then you can ask your questions. And again, in the meantime, if you have questions, do it in the chat. Okay, so what is exciting about Olympus, right? What is the current state of our treasury? What are our revenue streams, and what are actually the things to look forward to in the near future? So, as said also in an announcement, right, our treasury is actually very healthy. We dropped quite a lot in price over the last month or two. I the first to acknowledge that, but our treasury has actually not suffered that much, basically because we have recurring revenue coming in from not only, of course, LP fees, but also Olympus Pro has played a big part, fee sharing agreements with, for example, a redacted Alobis, these types of protocols, as well as, of course, the Klima that we hold, also add value to our treasury. I think I want to highlight that definitely that is really an important part for Olympus. So I think right now, if everything is included, also our Tokimac, which is actually in the DAO wallet, I think we have like 650, I could be wrong there, it changes every single minute, but $650 million in our treasury. With this, we can do a lot of things, right? We can do yield farming. For example, we have, I think, 25 million of our fracs sitting in Convex, generating quite a lot of CVX and CRV a day. We also have, of course, our vote locked convex, which we get bribes on every single 2 weeks, basically. For example, I think the average one is around like 750K, meaning that yeah, we have quite a lot of income in that way as well. On top of that, we had the largest OP month ever. So as you all saw, we had like our first $10 million OP bond, single bond from Keeper, which was amazing to see. The volume going through that is amazing, and also, yeah, of course, the fee share that we have there is also quite interesting to see. Where, for example, they were trading below 1K for quite a while. We raked up quite some of those fees, and now that they're trading at, I think, 1.67K, that's quite impressive as well. We also see that we profit a bit also of their growth and of them owning their own liquidity. I think they now own around 40% of their own liquidity in their own pool, which is, of course, very, very important. Then we have a lot of protocol, a lot of projects going in the DAO. So our DAO is again still rolling. It's not that we stand still every time the price drops. That would be, of course, very bad. But what we have going on in the DAO is quite a lot, right? We have our incubator where projects are getting incubated, like Vault, Vesta soon as well. Some others are also being worked on. There's like a full funnel that we're working on. We have the grants. So if projects want some grants from Olympus, they can come to us, say, okay, we'd like to use Olympus in this or this way. We would like to contribute to the economy. They can ask for a grant, and that will also help a lot of projects getting off the ground using Ohm as like this reserve currency of DeFi. We have the Agora News Network. You have undoubtedly listened to like a podcast that they put out in the newsletters, even the Twitter Spaces that they do. Like this is very valuable content, and I think in the future we could, for example, also license this to other protocols where they would like to, for example, do a spot on Agora News Network. I think that's, especially with the quality that they deliver, that's very important. As we saw with the success of Paragon DAO, right? Today we see that NFTs can also be a significant source of income, and we saw that already early. That's why we have Odyssey, and I've seen a couple of mock-ups and designs that are being made from Odyssey. But when this really is starting to ramp up, that will also be a very, very big driver for Olympus, where these NFTs and this NFT market could really prove to add value to the entire ecosystem. Olympus Pro, as said, we doubled, I think, the volume of Olympus Pro last month. We have an entire pipeline. Like we were thinking when you were posting that announcement yesterday to put like a blurred vision of like the pipeline that we have there, but still Olympus Pro is a product that's being asked about every single day in our DMs. It's I think something that even today, right? I got a lot of DMs. Olympus, and also further then we can offer on top of that like our consulting services, consulting based upon the policies of these bonds that people want to do, as well as, for example, the sizes, the durations, or even which assets. So for example, you can now see that Alchemix is taking in things like convex in a bond, and then we can even opt to take a part of that convex instead of the ALCX, which also let us to accumulate convex in that way as well, which is an interesting dynamic. We have Olympus Give, where projects have been funded. That's also very cool to see, and I think that use case for Olympus is also something that is now just being explored, but it can really be expanded into other use cases as well. For example, funding of projects that are using Ohm in that sense. We have a lot of cross-chain. We talked about this, I think, last week as well, quite a lot when Cello was on stage, about a cross-chain Proteus program. Again, we have quite a lot of liquidity now on multiple chains, giving the ability for protocols to take in Ohm, as we have seen before. We have the V2 bonds. Today we actually launched, or wherever you are in the world, today or yesterday, we launched the UST bonds, one of the most asked about bonds that we ever had, I think, and also the wrapped BTC bonds. We are now the proud owner of, I think, half of a wrapped BTC, but that will undoubtedly grow in the next few days. And we have expanded significantly the capacity of our bonds in, again, I think yesterday we expanded that. And that was actually regardless of the market tendencies. But okay, we added a lot of capacity. You'll see the inflow in the treasury now growing much more than in the past few weeks because we were doing a migration. But now that is all back and migration is essentially over, we can again get that treasury big and fat again, right? We have liquidity, whereas Atlantis, the OMI swap ID, which I know they've been working quite hard. The OM debtor function, where redacted has to be whitelisted there, where people can basically deposit as OM into our treasury and lend OM against it, only whitelisted protocols, of course, but in this way also add to their liquidity, and it again proves to be a very good catalyst for projects that want to align with Olympus. And then, of course, the V3 concentrated liquidity, where we can set liquidity in a certain range. Last but not least, because I see that Jesus has joined us on stage and I don't want to ramble too much, we have a lot of partners. You can go to the announcement. We have, like, I think we counted it. It was like 40 to 50 partners. They're really committed also to working with us. Again, you'll see an announcement later today or maybe early tomorrow about one very exciting. But yeah, it's great to see that these projects have our back. They also have again been in contact with us during this. Yeah, again, builders really don't care that much about what the price is or what the market cap is. They really think about, okay, what can this project do? Where is the value of this project? And this is a good team to work with. And we see time and time again that protocols really like working with us, and that we build these long-term sustaining relationships. As for example, with one of our earliest ones, right, Frax, that can be seen that every time we do something or every time they do something, we just add value for each other. I think that is quite it. Yeah, of course, revenue streams are growing daily. I listed in the announcement a couple, but again, bonds are opening up. We have OP coming in. We have LP fees. We have yield farming, and of course, these fee sharing agreements. And more, we will see then the inflow in the treasury starting to grow again. This was like my elevator pitch, as if you would go up an elevator of a 300-story building. But I think that is basically why we are not really faced by this, and we were actually very, very positive on the outlook for Olympus. But yeah, I maybe want to give the word a bit also to Zeus here. You have anything to say, sir? Here, or did I cover
hello,
it?
friend. Enjoying listening, but yeah, I mean, I'll break my rule, comment on a market
Am
a
I the
little
only
bit.
one not hearing Zeus?
But yeah, I mean, I try not to, but like I do want to. I think enough attention is being paid to the fact that like this is pretty solely just fucking liquidation spiral. So if you look at like the Grafana dashboards on Rari plus like the Abracadabra, $150 million has been delevered out of the market in the last 30 days. In the last 90, it's something like 200 million. Those are ridiculous sums of money, and it makes sense that it's dragging. Like, you know, I don't think I took enough action to discourage 9-9. Like, that shit sucks. Like, it literally, like, I hope that the people that have done it, like, realize that it's not free, that it's not safe. This goes to any market, and I think it's, like, what would have happened in any other market except for ours in this scenario is that anyone that had lent into that pool would have lost all of their money. So if you were lending in that fuse pool, you would be insolvent. We have a benevolent protocol treasury providing this liquidity that's not pulling all of its liquidity out like third parties would in this situation, which is, holy shit, there's $100 million worth of debt that's about to liquidate. A third party is going to take their money and leave, and those liquidations are going to have nowhere to go. So I don't quite know what to make of that. In that, is that a good thing? I think it's a great thing in like, hey, here's a good market to lend into. But it really comes down to like, this situation was somewhat predestined by building up $200 million in debt in the course of 2 months. I think that sucks, and it sucks the outcome that is creating. I do think that the good thing is that it's pretty much done. So it's, I think we've delevered around 80% now, and I don't know if they go for the guttural with the last whatever is remaining in there, but like there's also just a tendency in markets to hunt stops, and the best slash worst thing about this is that most of those stops pretty low, and so if you're going to go hunt them, you're going to drag the market down pretty deep, because you got to get down there and push them out. You're creating all these forced sellers at lows. Yeah, I don't know. That's my take on, like, it definitely is compounded by these like migration woes that we had. Like, certainly didn't help, because these things kind of compound on each other, where the liquidations to people, and then you just kind of shift the mentality. But yeah, I do chalk the vast majority to that. So I'm going to talk to Tetra about trying to lower the max loan to value on his fuse pool. We've seen like no issues in the Olympus fuse pool because we set it up conservatively. There's a reason that it's 33% loan to value. Everyone like stink faces that, like, oh, I can't even borrow anything, and it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to. If you are going to borrow, do it at low interest rates, do it at conservative values. That's what that pool is for. It's worked exactly how it's supposed to. It just kind of got counteracted by the fact that those pools are permissionless and anyone can do it. And there's not much that we can do about that. But I would also advise, like, I'm looking forward to Vesta and the other one, like, on Fuse, these are secondary lending markets. So someone else is taking their money and depositing it in it to lend it to you and earn interest. That is always more expensive than a primary lending market, which is protocol mints tokens out of nowhere and gives them to you as debt, and then you pay it back. We should be looking to, if debt does exist, that it's on primary markets and not secondary markets, because those secondary markets are just expensive, and you're just saddling the market with, a ton of your interest costs that have to be repaid in DAI or USDT or whatever. Like, that money has to come out of the pool. It's a systemic cost. So, I mean, if anyone wants to throw ideas on how we, it's not anything that we're ever going to be able to remove on an ability standpoint, but I think culturally, like, far too much built up around 9-9 being a good thing, and haha, I'm 9-9, and like, no, like, please shift that mentality to you're 9-9, like, wow, you're greedy, fuck off. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that that's the case, but rather just take a harder line approach against it. And I think that it'll diminish the occurrence of it. And that really truly seems in everyone's benefit, at least in my opinion. There's another one. Oh, with I've seen like locked staking discussion of late, where I the way that I would like to approach that, and I'm actually like working on a proposal, because trying to build this project on top of us that will create liquid interest rate markets for Ohm and Geom. And a very helpful way to accomplish that would be to offer Geom bonds, where you provide Geom and you get future locked Geom, which has the effect of lock taking. It intersects really well there. Yeah, so I would. It sounds like people are coming around to that anyways, so maybe that's a little tailwind on that. But I think that it removes the need to do that 9-9 anyways, so it kind of intersects there. It should create, like, I think, really great utility in data collection, opportunities to kind of lever without liquidation risk. Should create a big fat sink for supply where you'll be able to go and earn yield with single asset exposure while facilitating the rest of this. I think it'll be cool. And it sounds like everyone is kind of aligned on the locking component of that anyways, so we can explore that more. What's it called? So I'm just kind of scrolling through the chat.
And can you maybe expand a bit? Like, people say we are now at, I think, 1 billion. It still sounds amazing. If you would have thought, like, in April, a couple of months ago, that we would be trading at 1 billion, I've called you crazy. But like, we're trading now at 1 billion. Treasury is at like 650 last time I checked. Like, what are the catalysts here for a treasury, right, or inflow? How can V2 bonds help with this? I know we went over this last week, but I think we have now such a greater audience that it's very good to maybe help iterate that again and to say, like, a lot of people say, why wouldn't this just trade at backing value and not with a premium? Like, where does this premium come from? Where does the extra revenue come from in the next year? And maybe expand a bit on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, with the latter piece there, like, I truly feel like that is the most mid curve. Like, it's essentially asking, like, any project that is neutral, negative, why do they not trade at zero? Why? Like, it's literally the question, why does it trade at zero? Because you can look at the treasury as just zero plus treasury. So when, if you're asking why does it not just trade at treasury value, it's literally why does insert any other thing not trade at zero? There are premiums placed on growth technologies. Like, I think that we will continue to generate very real value. And that alone justifies that, in addition to just, like, what I look at this as is, like, I think that this got a little lost in translation, especially with, like, that post the other day where I've had a couple people that I've talked to that were like, actually, I was looking at this quite differently. There's this interpretation of this should be a hedge fund, which, if people want to go down that route, like, it's fine. Like, I've never looked at it like that. But I have looked at this like, we want to create the best asset possible. That's the goal here. And that obviously we're not quite behaving in this manner right now, but something that is safe to hold, will protect purchasing value, and utilizes the treasury behind it to accomplish those goals. I think that, like, two things that I'm going to propose shortly that will lend itself to that, and, like, I think that a big issue that we're seeing right now, which is, compounds that why does it not just trade at treasury value, is that there's not a whole lot of value being generated by the treasury actively in the market currently. There is the fact that those liquidity pools are, taking it, far more than any third-party LP would. And so that in itself is this inherent benefit of having this protocol and liquidity, is that it sits there and it doesn't matter how much you sell into it, it's not going to pull. But I think a more impactful route that will kind of just multiply that dynamic is with these V2 bonds, running bonds in both directions. So we run, ohm DAI as well as DAI ohm. We run ohm frax as well as frax ohm. And you have these isolated markets. You're essentially, like, what OPV2 has turned into at this point is new AMM. And this would be spinning up these multiple markets that are, you know, very capital efficient in terms of the amount of liquidity that they're providing, and generate volume into the secondary market. And so, you know, it should create this dynamic where there is much more liquidity, there's much more volume and activity. And we can also do this cross chain, which I think is probably the best way to go about it. So, you know, it also lends itself to, like, I think that we should be looking at retiring Proteus. I think that it's been very successful in, you know, giving us the information that we were looking for about what chains we should be pursuing. And at this point, we should look to own liquidity and not persistently rent it. And so this would lend itself to that as well. Where, you know, really, like, you know, so the dynamic that would create is in these liquidation events. The protocol is going to provide additional liquidity, and it's going to have less impact on the market. It's also on the upside going to sell more, and so it kind of automates the process of treasury growth, but correlates it more strongly with protocol growth. Yeah, where, you know, really, like, essentially what we have right now is a $1 million protocol with a $400 million whale whose sole purpose and intent is to support that market. So you can look at it like any other protocol of similar size, but there is some guy with $400 million and all it wants to do is support that network. Like, and then people say because of that it should only trade at 400. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I think that logically, like, the dynamic is quite the opposite. I don't know. I really try not to look at the day to day. Obviously at this point it's a little hard, but like, I don't know. I think that this is entirely irrational, personally. I also, you know, there's all these people coming out of the woodworks now to you know, throw shit at us. You know, I think that there are some valid points made, although they're not new points, and they're things that are generally being addressed in some manner. You know, I can do this in some more specific form later, but I mean, mostly the thing that like rubs me the wrong way about these is the timing of it, where, you know, these are people that have known that we exist for 6-9 months, almost across the board. They probably, you know, understand, like, you know, these are probably not new thoughts, and yet they wait until, you know, it's down 60% before they, you know, start taking their victory laps. You know, I see it as a coward route. You know, it's not things that are looking to be constructive. It's not looking to help anyone. It is looking to cash in on clout while it's a very safe proposition to do so. You know, especially with the amount of malice that is, you know, like, you know, supposedly this is all just some elaborate scheme. You know, it really just reads to me the same way as conspiracy theories do, where, you know, components may be true, but when you try to place this overarching, like, oh, some, you know, meticulous chess move type, like, it just doesn't make sense, and I think it's discrediting to ascribe malice onto everything. Anyway, you know, I don't think that they're bad things in that, you know, we should be criticized because criticism is a way to grow. You know, you take people speak out and you look at that and you can say, oh, maybe they're right on this component, and then you fix it. I just am rubbed the wrong way by the timing and the manner in which it's done. It's definitely not looking to be constructive. It's just looking to tear people down. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to highlight there, right? I think you make a good point where people say, you know, indeed, for the backing, why don't we trade at that, and other protocols don't have that. I want to maybe draw that line further and say, look at also our revenue, right? The revenue that we generate is on par or even above the revenue that, and I'm looking here at Token Terminal, right? PancakeSwap does 60 million a month. We go above that. You have like things like SushiSwap, Curve, Yearn, Maker, like we're all above the revenue that they're generating. They don't have even like most of them don't even have a treasury. Treasury that we sit on is fucking massive. Sorry for for saying it, but and we are generating even more revenue because we have that treasury. So it's actually partly also a bit of guaranteed income that we have due to, again, our convex or assets that we have that we can lend out, anything that we can do with our incubator, with our grants. All these things will continue to generate revenue. And if you then look at other peers in the industry, we are going above and beyond that in revenue numbers, and I think that also warrants a bit of the valuation that we are at in the market. So I think a lot of people underestimate that and see Ohm as like this entirely different beast than other other DeFi protocols or other protocols in general. But we are really outperforming many of like your like what are the CT guys' favorites shitcoins, right? So I think we're doing quite well in that aspect, and we see that also just happening today again. Like we had a call on the DAO just a couple of hours earlier. Everyone was just head down, working, continuing to push out quality products, and that's the thing that we would like to do, not only today, tomorrow, but for the next years to come, because we are here to stay. And this is not a short-term thing. We are here for the long term. Okay, some questions. So people are pinging me. Are you hurried? Are you hurried? Are you worried that this will hurt the demand for bond issuance? That's a good question, Sus.
Well, what?
So, do you think that this negative, for example, what I had a lot of people ask, right? Are you worried that this negative connotation maybe that Olympus now has any impact on, for example, people wanting to buy bonds? Because we also sometimes have lengthened the bond duration, right? Or people wanting to do OP or wanting to work together with us. Do you think that has any impact at all?
I mean, in the short term, it might, but we've been shit on for the entirety of our existence, across the board, and it's been the thing that's new that didn't exist prior was there were plenty of people that didn't like us because they didn't get in early and we didn't scratch their backs, and they turned around and launched their own, and accomplished that where you create an incentive to be against us. Because you now have your killer that our downfall is your betterment, or so you think. But this has been the case forever, barring short 1-2 month periods of time, when everyone is in euphoria mode, and suddenly it's not those guys that it's gotta pile in. I think that the responsibility to disprove and to outbuild the hate is on us, always has been on us, always will be on us. And we can't really do much except continue on as we have, is kind of how I look at it. So like I like to think about, if there are valuations or community sizes or whatever that you cannot sustain when they're decreasing, having them increase more prior wouldn't have fixed that. It would have made it worse. We really need to just find solid foundations and build out of them. Always has been. Like, I'm pretty confident that we do that again. I don't know where this stage ends, but like I do feel quite confidently that it does end. And then the funny thing is that if we are successful and we get out of this as we have every single time, everyone will turn around in months from now and be like, wow, those guys were geniuses. And the reality is the opposite right now, where you're told that you're fucking stupid. I mean, it really, people have short attention spans and memories. All we need to do is put our best foot forward, moving forward, and act with integrity. Accomplish what we're trying to, and that'll be it. Well, it sounds like Zeus is about to cry. I'm not. I
That's an
swear.
old comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy. Another good one I saw was like, why would people with current sentiment not fork the OP contracts and do it themselves? Like, I think this call is a great example of why they would. We currently have 1,450 people listening to this call. Our community is giant. We have 71k people in our Discord. We have a Twitter that's followed by 150,000 people. Or like if you saw the Paragon DAO bond launch today, it went flawless. People can count on us. We offer a kick-ass product with a very good quality that has been audited and with like great expertise. And I think like the big volume, especially those big volume Olympus Pro partners, really see the value in this and are continuing to add funds to it, as you can see with like a Frax, an Alchemix, Keeper, and now Paragon DAO, which is why I think that is very great to see. Other questions people
In
are
terms
bringing
of
me.
why wouldn't you just fork OP? If you want to fork the current contracts, go ahead. Because
Yeah.
new ones will destroy you. So it's time to don't care.
You really came for war, didn't you? Let's see. This is a funny one, which I think I know the answer to. Would you consider a secondary capital raise to bring on strategic partners and help catalyst prices? Yeah, I don't think so.
I
We
mean,
don't need that.
if someone wants to pursue that, like take it to the forum.
Yeah, of course.
There's precedent with like the Phantom trope or whatever with sushi where people were pretty against it, but I think every community is different. I'm not inherently opposed to that, but that's definitely not something that I think like I should have any involvement in, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Let sideline VCs in, right?
There's value that can be created there. It's just a matter of will people look at it in that light, and is that true with the cohort that would be a part of it? I would imagine that it wouldn't go well, but I mean, if someone wants to try, like, go ahead.
Okay, a question that comes up quite a lot, and I think it's good to address this head on. People really like that we're transparent. What would happen if we went below backing? Like, what are some of the options that are out there to get it back at a certain level? Like, what would we do in that case?
Yeah, so we would either expedite this or just wait until the audit is wrapped up, but we would take OP. We would create markets that take DAI or Frax or whatever and buy Ohm. When you buy it, you burn it. And, that's either just do so, kind of blindly, regardless of price, with some amount of money, or that is only up to a certain price. So the expectation there with only up to a certain price would be stop repurchasing at backing, and then you essentially set a hard floor at that price. Yeah, I mean it's something that we can I would prefer waiting for the audit to be done, but even prior to that, if it was some really jump at it situation, like could be spun up in a span of hours.
Mm-hmm. So that's
the key is the OP protocol. So you need to have this contract, like creation contract, approved by the Treasury, at which point it gets taken care of by the protocol.
And just to clarify, right, because I get this question here, are you talking about backing price as in like the market price of all assets, or are you talking about the risk-free value per outstanding Ohm?
It's an open question. I would say that we should have a hard line set at least one DAI. There's honestly, we should just have this up. There's a contract that will just, the Treasury can honor withdrawals at RFV. So, at that 1-per-1 mark, that can just happen on the Treasury itself. I think that we should, it hasn't seemed all that important, but maybe we load that up just so that it's sitting there on chain, ready to go. But then there are several levels above that it's a bit more nuanced, and you can step in. You can do so safely, and pretty much have more money than the market does. But at what point do you? So like one of those is the market value of the treasury. The other is or market value of the treasury minus ohm. There's another that's market value of the treasury minus the ohm in the treasury, and then subtracting the ohm and pools from market cap because the treasury already owns that. There's a couple of different numbers. Like I don't think that we're gonna hit a point where we need to do that actively. But actually, honestly, putting precedent in place would be a good thing. Align on how to handle that. Which level is that kick in, and then we can automate all of it and not have to worry about it.
Good. Can you maybe expand also a bit on I think this migration? Why was this migration needed? And what? So a lot of people have been asking this migration has come, thinking that, which is of course is proven by you can see the entire market for Olympus coins or forex also going down if they don't have any with us. But why was the migration needed? What does it enable? And is the migration finished? People think this thing can finish. But what is your view on that? And yeah, what does this enable?
Yeah. So in terms of, I'll start with this. It finished. I believe yes, minus liquidity that's still on the V1 side. So we need to do some comms to wrap this up, where there's still money in Abracadabra that needs to move over. I think there's 3 million in debt there. The expectation was that because that pool looks at a price feed from the V1 token. So the hope / expectation was that we would be able to work with Chainlink to have that feed originate with the V2 token. So use that price feed instead. That is not the case, unfortunately. And so we need to clear out that debt before we can move those pools over. At which point, I do think that everything is done on that. In terms of why, so one, the infrastructure is just a lot better now. A pretty solid example that you can point to is that staking used to cost, I believe, 2.5 times more gas than it does today. It's a lot of just infrastructural improvements, where at a bare minimum, the code is much better written, and people used to complain about how it was hard to understand what was going on, but no longer the case, at least in my opinion. There's one other that there was, this is the biggest one for me, and literally lost a whole lot of sleep about this for a while. There's a potential vulnerability as a result of bad disposal of the owner of the token. So that was on an EOA that it essentially carried this very slim rug risk for the entire network. Where that literally I lost a lot of sleep over that because one, don't want to see the network rugged. Two, if it were, it would have been pointed at as I had done it, which I'm not going to. I would never fucking do that, but it would be very hard to defend against. That has been removed, where there was Maker and Aave, and other protocols were uncomfortable with integrating that token because that existed. So that I would see as the biggest improvement in terms of just safety. But it really did just align with I think the timing was pretty terrible. I think that the trajectory of the forks and us as a result probably would have been the same in either case, and that just compounded the issue. The debt would have been the same either way, just compounded the issue. I guess that was the one real case of community side disorder generation of confusion, all this communications that has to be done around it, and risk that exists in poor execution, and all these things that definitely don't help. Um, the good thing is just we're really beyond it now. I can't think of a whole lot of things that still need to be done other than the liquidity thing. I believe at that point the only other things are just OP tokens still get sent into that for some of them. Actually, I think that's been fixed as well. Yeah, TLDR, we need to get that debt out of Abracadabra, and we should do some communications to urge people that are deposited in there to repay their debts. And yeah, we can finally put that behind us and never have to think about it again. Yeah. I feel like I hit.
Yeah, no, that's indeed most of it, I think. Apparently, Jeebus has tweeted, "Isn't Ohm supposed to drop to $1? Did I not understand that right?" Yeah. So if you see people say stuff like that, 9 times out of 10 it's a troll, of course. If it's really someone, a friend of yours, that says that, and they're a bit left side of the curve, explain it a bit, right? I know that in the very beginning of Olympus, it was the analogy of a chicken and a is a chicken word just the meat and the bones? No, chicken and live chicken, of course, is a word. Also, the eggs that it lays in the future. So, same thing here. Same thing with, for example, the stock price of Apple or whatever. If Apple would liquidate all its assets, yeah, you don't have the stock price today, but there are also future revenue generation in there. Some brand as well. I think the Olympus brand is still very strong. The community as well, the DAO, they all hold value, and that is also supporting the premium above what we have in the treasury as well. Okay, any more questions? Please ask them in the chat. Let me scroll a bit here.
I'm seeing one.
Okay, go ahead.
The objective is reducing APY, stabilize price, create a long runway. We should stop 99 first. I agree with that. I like the unfortunate thing. We do on our end all that we can do against it, which is that we have a fuse pool that offers plenty of liquidity, but does so at a very conservative loan to value. The reality is that it's permissionless. You can't physically stop someone from doing it, but I do think that as a community we should really come together around removing this from our repertoire or from our vocabulary. I don't think that there isn't, and I don't think really ever was a huge place for it. You can look at when that debt built up, and pretty much everyone that did lever up is down bad. It didn't really help anyone. It's in literally in no one's best interest. In my opinion, I think that there is a reasonable place for debt in borrowing money and taking it somewhere else. But the key there is that you've taken it somewhere else, and if you have to repay that debt, you go to a different market to recoup that collateral. You don't have to. The issue with 99 is you borrow money, you sink it back into the market where it can disappear, and then when you have to repay, you got to take it back out of our own market. And it just, I would agree with you that it lends itself to a lot more volatility. And yeah, I mean, you got to pay the piper someday. And I'm personally glad that it's happening now, honestly, because with the interest rates on those pools as well, the longer that debt exists, just it only goes up. It's an only up dynamic. So the sooner to get rid of it, the better. Which we have now done to a pretty nice degree.
Yeah. Maybe 2 questions that come to mind and that I saw pass by on Twitter as well. People say, why don't we just drop it immediately now to 1K APY? Short pain or pain, depends how you call it, of course, and see it, of course. What's your opinion on that?
I honestly don't even know what it's at now, but
3.7, I think. Yeah, something around 3.
I mean, I don't think that it'd make a huge difference, but I'm also not opposed to it. Like I'm pretty on board with getting it down. So, uh, again, I feel like that's just something to take onto the forum and coordinate around. And if that's how people's stance are, because I mean, really, like the only enemy against doing that is other holders that might not want that to be the case. So, I really see that as just a community responsibility, I guess, of if someone wants to propose that and get people rallied around it, then send it.
Yeah. Okay. Another one is like, why aren't we just form entire treasury in all in Convex? Like, what is your view on that? I know in the very beginning, or like the couple last months as well, but there was always like this tendency also a bit to be quite conservative, because we want to be a reserve currency. We're not here a hedge fund. I think a lot of people also want us to be a hedge fund, or like a VC, or investing in these up and coming projects entirely, and that will be our entire focus. Like, what is your view on that? Like, how should the treasury be managed? Should we be like a fund or a hedge fund? Or should we be a VC? What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, I have never looked at this as a hedge fund. With that, like, I wrote that article a couple days ago, and with that, I learned that more people than I thought were looking at it from that angle. I've always been on the side of, you know, safety of the treasury is the highest importance. Like, yield generation from the treasury is a sub, like, of lower importance than just protecting that it is there. Um, yeah, which does seem to be, at odds with some people that, like the goal seems to be generate as much yield as possible. And if you get rugged on some of it, whatever. I think that there's a place in there for, like, I don't think that they need to be at odds with each other. Other than the fact that the uh, strategies running or being run are not like degenerate. But like they can kind of happen in parallel with each other. I guess, like, I don't think that trying to be this super strong asset and generating yield on treasury assets are mutually exclusive. I think that the VC component is a lot easier. We don't need to be investing treasury funds to make venture investments. And like the real value that comes from getting Olympus as a backer on a project is probably not the capital as much as it is the community that can come with it. The assistance from the DAO, which has a pretty wide ranging like host of contributors with different skill sets that you can lean on. Where, like, I don't know, like I see that as having no interference with how conservatively the treasury is managed.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've always been on the side of conservatism. It seems it makes sense that as we grow, like you pull in more people that are less so in that state of mind. But I don't know. I don't think it's really my place to say much more than how I view it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people haven't really seen or haven't been around long enough to see like one of these protocols get exploited or hacked, or a pool get trained, or an imbalance of a pool, right? If you work with stables, it's something that is not not something that is never happening, right? There is a risk there, and if, for example, we would form with our stables, which we have, I think we have risk free value 220 million. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Again, but if we would lose even say 20 million of that, that's already almost 10% of the entire risk-free value that would be gone. So it's really not something where we can just go over lightly. And if you want to be a reserve currency, people need to be confident that you actually have that reserve there. and you can generate revenue as much as you want. But the most important aspect of this is, okay, the funds need to be safe. Unless you make strategic investments, as we again do with our incubator program, with our grant program, right? And often these investments are done in ohm and not in our reserve assets. Okay. Not going to ask that question. I also want to say this, right? Like I see a lot of hate coming also from FUD coming from other protocols towards us, and I know that we also in the past with ourselves, with others. I really think that we should leave that behind us. I think Sue said it best in I think the Medium or Twitter. I don't know anymore, but we should really try to now become collaborative, try to let everyone see the light of use Olympus, why we are a community, what we can offer for others. Have like this outreaching hand towards other protocols. I think we truly like would want to do that, and it's also something that I want our community to do, which is important. I know we are now the ones that are a bit down. Sometimes others are that as well. And then in that situation, I think we would also want to reach our hand out and help others in that case. It sounds a bit preachy, but yeah, we now know how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, like I do think that we have done a lot to be collaborative, but we also got dragged into drama and just like see, it frustrates me the little amount of slack that we're lent for the fact that I think that there are maybe two situations, so Ethereum and Uniswap, that you can point to of a protocol, and on our end, probably the most of any, like a community that has been forked and siphoned away from in the manner that we have. Like vampire attacks left and right by the thousands. It's tough. It's uncharted waters, and I think that the reaction on a like aggregate level probably wasn't what it should have been. And like I don't think that like we probably could have managed things better, but at the same time, like no one knows how you respond to those things and what the right playbook is there. Like it is literally an unprecedented like situation and probably like history. Like where can you point to an example of one project starting doing something and suddenly there are 1,000 clones of it within the span of a month? It's insane. That said, like I spent some time. I was looking at like the original docs for this, and like one of these big things that I think has been somewhat lost, and I would love to make pushes to bring this back. Is supposed to serve as this base camp for DeFi the industry. So a financial industry generally has a central bank at its center, and we are meant to be that for DeFi. It's an industry that is very, we're very segmented and separated in a lot of ways. And I think that it's kind of looked at in this manner, like, oh, we're just figuring these things out. But like, I very strongly believe that DeFi needs some umbrella to sit under where people can coordinate to push forward the goals that we all share as an industry. There's a ton of overlap. I guess instead of that, we've ended up separating and dividing people in a lot of ways, and I think that can be definitely like course corrected. It kind of comes down to like I think that we should have a lot more relationships with projects where we don't have anything to do with them on any protocol level. It's literally just we exist in the same industry, in the same ecosystem. We have common goals, and we will focus on tackling those together because we're stronger together than we are separate. Yeah, I think that it's pretty like timely as well, just because there's been this massive trend in the last year towards kind of like closed ecosystems and, you know, coalitions and kind of like, you know, macro division in the industry. You know, I would love for us to be a counter force to that. Of let's not turn these into siloed ecosystems. Of you have, you know, a specific AMM for a group of projects and a specific, you know, stable coin and a specific like whatever, and all these things only serve that ecosystem, and you end up with these silos, and it's a very negative or zero/negative sum environment of the goal of those ecosystems is to kill off the rest of the ecosystems and be the only one. I don't know. I think that there's a route where we do the same thing. I would rather take the route of let's not do that. Let's you know, open our doors to, you know, even if we aren't working directly with each other, you know, if we can align on things that, you know, don't have to do with protocol level things, but just have to do with, you know, survival and growth as a larger industry. That seems like the stronger route there. Yeah, I don't have much more on that. I'll stop rambling.
No, I think that was very, very true. Okay, any more questions? We'll do still like 10 more minutes, I think. We don't want to do this too long. I think we don't want to bore 1,500 of you. Or 3,050. 250, sorry. Oh, wait, okay. Let's maybe pull someone on stage then. We have 7 people, 8 people that want to come up. Let's pull someone on that hasn't been on that much, because I see a lot of the same names. Boji, if you want to come on, you're free to do so. Zach, if you want to come on. Hi, sir. If you're talking, I can't hear you. Well, you fixed that. Oh, yeah. So, one thing that was also in that article was some further speculation around POM, POLY, faster tokens, Steam tokens. It was basically alluding that people could forever claim 11.8%. Can you maybe there also address then like the change that was done in the summer that and those types of things, just to put people's mind at ease there?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I call it.
Yes, it's no problem. No problem. So just POM, like that article that came out, right? Talked about POM, basically saying you can infinitely just claim 11.8%, sell it at the top, and then claim another 11.8%, sell it at the top again. Maybe also address that like no one from the team has actually sold any tokens. Also, like what's up with POM, POLY? A bit of clarity on that.
Yeah,
and how that incentivizes people to hold long term, basically.
Yep. I've spoken about this because this happened back in like July or June. But I don't think that we ever made like large scale comms on this, and I still see a lot of outdated information. So, there was an issue with POLY, the token, or POM, doesn't exist. Like, it exists on chain. It hasn't been used for 6 months. The issue that it presented was, and I mean, I find it incredibly funny to listen to these like FUD pieces on POM because they don't even identify this, which was a very real issue. They're looking at how it used to work and they can't even like spot this. But you know, it used to have the dynamic of you could claim, you know, let's say 1%, and then you could stake that 1%. And you know, over time, supply is going to grow, and you can claim back up to that 1%. But you've also earned staking rewards, and so you have this like double effect. That was bad. You know, we caught it pretty early on. We fixed it so that the token had to be deprecated because now you don't have this like one-to-one relationship of claim to tokens that you end up with. But it was applied retroactively. So like essentially the accounting was if this was in place from the beginning, and the way that it works is that if it's a 1% number, you claim some tokens, it's going to consider those tokens staked. And when it looks at how many you claimed, it's going to look at what would be the staked balance of what you have now. So if you are to go and sell tokens, whatever you sold, it's still going to consider as staked. And so you have this persistent opportunity cost having sold tokens where it continues to add to your like balance and actively hurts you. The benefit that those tokens do have is correctly identified, which is that they are protected from dilution. That is the only thing that they have a benefit on. I will point to the fact that from in the past year since launch, dilution has been less than 50%. So the benefit there is like a 2x bump at the most. There's no infinite mint. There is no just take as many tokens as you want. In terms of they could go and like catch the tops and buy back the lows or whatever. I guess, but you can literally look on chain and like literally probably the strongest holders in this network are the people that hold those tokens. Like just quantitatively. I dislike it, and then I saw a lot of people that like forked us. They used the same mechanism, and they probably used the original one, which had that like double dip dynamic as well. So that was not great. Not really our problem, but if you're in those projects that have those P tokens, you should definitely verify that they're accounting for it with the staking index and not just nominal tokens claimed, because if that's the case, then their ownership is going to be more than it should be. That said, I mean, I'm personally very open to like if we want to rework that. Like I haven't claimed pretty much any of my tokens. I think I have 10% of them. So even if this outcome was like I get nothing, like I would be unhappy about that. But like it's been worked in there from the start that like you guys own the network. Tell us what to do. But I honestly think that it is disadvantaging because we have to pay for the tokens. Like there's a dynamic of that encourages selling to get that money to buy the tokens. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I don't really know. I kind of view it as just like a pseudo bond. Anyway, like there's no infinite minting there. There's no like jubilee.
No,
like
that's also why I was going through. You have a fun way of saying a whole thing and like long-winded manner, but that's okay. One more thing here is.
Did I miss my chance, fellas? I don't want to be rude.
No. Go ahead.
First of all, I just want to say we appreciate everything you guys are working on. I think having this community call today, coupled with knowing that the devs and contributors are not abandoning ship, hearing from Zeus himself, all of these things kind of put some of the new Omis at ease who might have just entered at a higher price point. I also think hearing from some of the bigger Twitter and crypto influencers like Tetranode and yourselves also reassures everybody. At the end of the day, if this was a Ponzi, I don't think you guys would be taking time out of your day right now to have this call, nor would the Treasury be sitting where it's at still as well. I think you guys would all agree with that.
Yeah, if that were the case, we'd all be on beaches and you would never hear from the council. And that would happen.
No doubt. So, quick question. I was wondering if the protocol itself manages the dilution in terms of how that's reflected in the own price after every rebase, or does a certain amount of money need to step in daily to offset the dilution? Or is it just the dilution is not directly linked to ohm at all?
Yeah, so this is actually an interesting one, right? So I think that keeping an eye on dilution is a good thing, but like some level of it, I think is healthy. We've actually been deflationary for 2 months. So if you staked from 2 months ago to now, you have 10, 12%, or maybe it's 5 or 6, but like 5+% more. Like if you started with 1% of the network, you would have 1.05 now. So we've actually have not diluted. We have been actively deflationary. I think that there's a good argument to be made that that's not a good thing. But you know, yeah, I mean, I've been working on like I should probably just post them one by one instead of saving them all and doing them all at once. But a couple of things like improvement proposals. One of them being automating. Like essentially, what we want to do is keep up to grow the liquidity at the same rate that supply is growing, which would automate that dilution in essentially like maintaining parity is automated, and then anything discretionary on top of that, which might dilute or deflate, would be a separate thing. So you have this dependable baseline, and then discretionary mechanisms on top of that, which would either be policy controlled or I would much prefer that we push that into token holder controlled, and get those curve war dynamics going.
Sure, love it. Well, cool. The last thing I'd like to mention is I love the whole thing behind the DAO and what it represents. At the same time, I feel like, and this is just my opinion, what appealed me to this project was, coming behind some of the most brilliant minds in crypto. So I think having you guys throw out your new ideas and proposals is not only extremely beneficial, but guys like me who probably don't know nearly as much as you do about finance or crypto would really rally behind those proposals in a unique way. So just throwing that out there. I know you guys are working around the clock and constantly thinking, but I personally value that as well.
Thanks, man. It was a great question. We take that definitely into account. Thank you for coming on stage.
Okay, thanks.
Zach, you're up.
Can everybody hear me? Testing.
Yes, I can.
Awesome. I've not long been an Ohm participant. I did do some staking early on, and I heard the gentleman Zeus mention that it would be a good idea for the smart contract protocols in DeFi, or for those, I guess, developers and team members to come together and just on a general basis discuss the finer points of different protocols, adding, subtracting, taking away, or adding to those things to create a bigger and better system. I think that's one of the bases of crypto is almost everything is open source. So, and it's that way for a reason, so that we can improve upon. I love the idea of olympusdao. That's one of the things that got me hooked. As far as allowing your own treasury and the project's own assets to help with staking APYs, reaching out to different projects and involving them into olympusdao's ecosystem or vice versa. I think that's a phenomenal idea, and it's part of DeFi 2.0. And so I really appreciate and a big supporter of that. I actually now go out looking for ecosystems with a similar skeleton or platform or some of the forks of olympusdao. So redacted. I think klimadao also engages or has your skeleton as part of their DeFi makeup. That's all pretty much. Alchemix, I think, is another really good platform, and hopefully, as you said, as you described, all the different projects can intermesh and kind of share ideas and create a bigger and better thing. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come up. And
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think you're a very good points. And I think you're the first person who ever called Zeus a gentleman. So I think that's also a first. Thank you for coming on stage. Maybe like one last thing to close up. Going for an hour 15. I hope you all saw it, and some people posted it in the chat. That Tokamak or friends of Tokamak put out that there is a G-ohm reactor opening soon. Zeus, can you maybe expand very shortly on that? How do you think of it? And yeah, how it helps us in the end, and also how it gives utility for G-ohm holders as well.
Yep. So on the latter one, right now, if there's been a tokamak reactor and it's been ohm only, and so if you don't want to forfeit your staking rewards, you're not going to go deposit into tokamak. We've been working with them to do something similar as with Redacted with the debt facility, so they can accept GM depositors. They can then borrow against what you've deposited to provide liquidity. So that means that you, as a GM holder, can go deposit into Tokamak, earn Toka on top of all your staking rewards. No opportunity cost. I believe that they're going to start deploying. So there's going to be a T-Geom curve pool as well, I believe. So you can LP into that as well. So that'll be cool. And in I don't know how long, but they will start deploying liquidity with that. And the goal with us and them is we'll start kind of as a token, and then the goal is definitely that we build up so we are one of, if not the prime routing volatile token that they're using. So there is a huge synergy that I see with us and Tokamak. They're looking for TVL and more liquidity to route, and we are looking to build up our liquidity in our own markets. And so they work pretty hand in hand there. Really, the difference right now though is just previously you had to stake ohm into Toka to be part of that reactor. Now you can do it with Geom, so you get to keep your staking rewards. And I see lots of links for that in the chat.
Indeed. Okay. Any closing thoughts? Because we actually have AMA coming up with our friends over at Fiat DAO in 15 minutes. So also don't want to steal their thunder. But any closing thoughts, Zeus, Jaw?
Yeah, I would just like to throw out for the protocols and projects that have aligned with us to date. Just obviously this sucks for us as well as for you. We're I'm personally super appreciative of it's essentially they're being early adopters and you carry more risk by doing so. I'm pretty confident though that we will ensure that the value that they're providing to us comes back to them, and that we are very strong partners who they are glad to have aligned with them, as well as we are glad to have them aligned with us. I don't know. I'm gonna make that a personal priority. I don't know. It sucks right now. I very much believe that it will be looked back on and forgotten, and ends up worth in the end.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah. Wait. One more that someone just brought up was creating an auction place for debt. Another one of my things that I'm going to bring up are on the forum is debt liquidation facility from the Treasury. So in some of these cases, we might want to have the treasury buy the debt, liquidate the borrower, and then distribute out the liquidation over time instead of in a single transaction. So you can look at that as well. That would reduce liquidation volatility pretty significantly.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, great remark there. Okay, then we're going to close here. As always, if you want the recording of this AMA again, it's on Twitch /olympusdao. Thank you all for joining. We were like at a peak with 1,500 people. It was amazing to see the support, to get amazing questions, to see like a lot of OGs and then people that have been active here for the past weeks and months. Again, united. If you're still here, I think it shows that you believe in this project, that you know what our mission is, that we're also as an entire DAO working day in day out to make this work. I hope you are convinced of that. If there's any questions left, please DM me or any of the community managers or mods or Sherpas with your questions. Happy to help, and we are very, very grateful for your continued support as always. In 10 minutes we will have the Fiat DAO AMA here, hosted by I think Mark 11 and Trondon, with Max from Fiat DAO. As said, hope to see you there as well, and see you next time. Thank you all for joining. Bye.
See you, everyone.